Good morning. It is so good to be with you this morning at Ascension Virtual Church. My name is Luke. I am an ordinand at Ascension, which means I'm training to be a vicar. Now, we've just read some words from the end of Luke's Gospel, where we see Jesus risen from the dead, coming up and talking with a couple of his friends, his disciples, as they walk along a road to Emmaus. It's a wonderful story, but I want to ask a particular question in the light of it. And my particular question that I want us to think about together is this. What's it for? What's it for? This whole resurrection thing. Why did God want to come to the world as a human being, in flesh and blood, like you and me and Jesus, only then to die, and then not to die, to be taken back from the dead and be alive again? What's it for? What's the point in that? Why did God want to do this strange work amongst us? Now, in the New Testament, we get some answers to that question. Answers like, God did this to take away our sins, or God did this to forgive us, or God did this to defeat death, or to defeat Satan, to defeat evil, or God did this to release us from a slavery that we've got ourselves involved with. Now, those are all great answers that have inspired Christians through the centuries, but they're big answers. They're big answers to, admittedly, a big question. What's it all for? Why resurrection in the first place? But sometimes I feel like those answers are too big. You know, these ideas of sin, forgiveness, slavery, evil, they're quite abstract notions. And I'm still sometimes left asking myself, okay, I kind of understand that, but still, what's it for? What's it actually for? What's it mean for me now? Am I actually involved in all of that in any way? What does it mean for me? Does it impact me? And I think we can maybe get a bit more of a specific, down-to-earth answer in this passage that we've just read. I'm just going to read a few words from the beginning of it. This is Luke chapter 24, beginning at verse 13. Two of them, Jesus' friends, were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near, went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. I love those words. I love the detail of that passage. You know, if you're going to invent a story of resurrection just from scratch, if you're just going to write some fiction or write something to persuade somebody that someone had risen from the dead, you wouldn't write this, would you? It says here that Jesus came, but the disciples didn't recognize him. He was there, but they didn't know it was Jesus. But if you were tasked with writing a persuasive resurrection story, what would happen? Jesus would come, the disciples would recognize him. Hooray, it's Jesus, back from the dead. And it's details like that. The disciples didn't recognize him. That just tell and witness to the truthfulness, the historical details of the actual event of Jesus appearing to his disciples again. Somehow, Jesus, even though it is Jesus, is not apparent to them. He's like a stranger to them. There's something mysterious or different about him that keeps them from recognizing him. So Jesus comes up to them as a stranger. And then he says some words to them. Now, this is the bit I love. Because in any play or novel or film or TV show, the first words of a character are so important. It's the first words of a character that are going to introduce the character, summarize something of that character, Tell of some of the reason of why they're there, the role that they're going to play in the story. And these words here are Jesus' first words after his resurrection. These are the first words of the resurrected Jesus. What might he say? He might say, "Look at me, I'm back, hooray!" Or he might say, "Ah, told you so." Or he might say, "Isn't this nice? Now you can come and follow me and everything will be happily ever after." But no, what he actually says, and here's another one of those amazing historical details, what he actually says is this, his first words after his resurrection. "What are you talking about with each other while you're walking along?" And I think it's in those words that we have an answer to our question, what's it for? What's the reason behind all of this resurrection stuff? The reason Jesus did this, the reason God came to earth and defeated death, is this: so that he could draw up next to these friends, next to you and me, and simply ask, what are you talking about? What are you chatting about? What are you up to as you're going about your life together? God is our creator. He is infinitely interested in every single one of us, and any boundary that comes between us and his immense interest and love for us, he destroys in the resurrection, so that he can come again and simply draw up next to us and be interested in us. Ask us how we're doing. Ask us what we're talking about. And God doesn't need, perfect people to answer his question. He doesn't need happy, fulfilled, emotionally 10 out of 10 people. The disciples, in response to Jesus' question, it says they just stood still and they looked sad. And that is us today. We're sitting still in our isolation. We're looking sad because we've been isolated and separated from loved ones, from friends, because there's terrible things going on in the world. But Jesus is interested in us in that. He wants us to answer him truthfully, whether it's, my friend is really ill, that's what I'm talking about, or I'm talking about my relative who's just died. God is interested in that. And he did this. He died and defeated death so that he could come and be with you, talk with you about it, spend time with you while you're in the midst of that sorrow, and take you through it, and take you, in the end, out of that into new resurrected life with him. So today, answer Jesus' question. What are you talking about while you're walking along? What are you chatting about while you're going about your business? Answer him truthfully. Let him into your life again. He did all this for you because he's so interested in you, because he loves you so much. So answer him truthfully today. Amen.